Thank you all so much for waiting for this next installment of Little Big Wins. I I was feeling under the weather, and often around this time of the year here in New York City, my throat just gets shredded, just thrashed by what appears to be very dry winter chill winds and wind chill. And so my throat is often a victim of that. So you can hear now how a little bit hoarse I am still, getting over it, but I am on the mend. I also had some visitors from out of town, some college gal pals come visit me here in New York City for the first time. I was busy with that. And just busy in general. And I also wanted to take some time to think about the next installment, the subject matter of today's podcast of Little Big Wins. And I've decided to dedicate this particular podcast to my love for President Trump. And I want to share with you the little things that I did, but also the little things I allowed to happen to me to get to where I am now. It was definitely an evolution of siding with him and feeling so deeply appreciative of him, full of gratitude. Of course, this comes on the heels just hours after he is released. He has allowed the release of the first wave, phase 1 of the Epstein files, which is a hallmark milestone in all that he's done so far, especially during this second term, but also, of course, linked to the wonderful things he did in the first term. So anyway, I want to offer full transparency of that. I want to share the little things that I did, the little things that I allowed in my life to get me to this point, to have appreciation. At the time that President Trump was first elected into office, I actually was not a fan. He just appeared a particular way. And so to give further context to that, I do want to I'm going to give myself away a little bit, although I want this podcast to remain faceless to protect my privacy. But I do want to share that at the time that he had risen to power through an election and, of course, public popularity, if not international popularity at the political level, I had, previous to that, been involved with supporting legal advocacy for rights and the lack of development of civil rights and human rights on and off an American Indian reservation in South Dakota. And that movement was led by a wonderful tribal member. She's a legal law expert, not an attorney, but certainly knew far more than an attorney. All attorneys combined that I ran into there in and around the tribal office. And I was there really just as a support for her and all the wonderful things that she did. And so all the things that, I got taught when I was like in 6th grade, 5th grade, a little bit in middle school and again in high school about civics and American politics and American history. All those things that I did not realize would actually be needed in life after high school graduation, let alone college graduation, because I do humanities, I do the arts and the humanities. All of that came to like the most important information when in the act of doing legal advocacy and community empowerment for fellow U.S. Indigenous like myself, Native Americans on the main continent. I'm actually U.S. Indigenous from a U.S. territory in the Pacific. So I was there doing other things, and then I found myself supporting pro bono, not paid at all, happy to do it voluntarily to support these wonderful things that she was doing. And of course, she involved so many others. Because of my friend, she had taught and educated in those ways by visiting people, going on the radio, the rights that her tribal people could have, but they are currently without. Why? Because people who are also American Indian in power have not allowed it for all these decades. That's the truth about American Indian politics, especially at that particular Indian reservation, where I would say is notorious, not even loosely notorious, but like number one spot, ground zero for almost all of Native American politics since the IRA was set up, or the Indian Reservation Act was set up decades and decades ago. So I was already doing that. I was already on this political. I had a political life in that that I did not know I would have. It just kind of came to me, and I followed Heavenly Father's promptings to be the support in that, and I continue to do that even to this day. And I continue to go to that same reservation often, once or twice a year, to support other things, and also I'm always in support of that and what she and the people there need to have a better life with more rights, better rights, and a path towards making amendments that are better for their reservation. And it's great because it's a hallmark and a beacon for other American Indian reservations to follow. It's that notorious, that particular Indian reservation, and is of honored and respected in that particular way. So I was already in the throes of that. The Obama era was ending. His second term. I had voted previously for Obama, his first term. Of course, we were elated, and then I was disappointed. So his second term came around, and about the half of his second term, I had realized that Obama really, at least according to me and what my findings were, really did nothing. He made things. Was very selective about programs. He was more divisive than people thought he was. And so I was on that. I was so proud that, okay, as African American, someone that kind of looks like me. He's also had a life in the Pacific, which is my home region originally, as an indigenous person from that region. And so there was some affinity there, but I really was disillusioned by him, and realized I was about the beginning of the second half of his second term. And so I was coming off this. I was still trying to figure out, okay, what position am I going to take in my writings, my academic writings. At that time, I really did not want to do race and DEI or anything related to that. Although that really was the hot and growing topic. Myself, as a person of color and a female, indigenous on top of that, and of course educated, we became the kings of that time. However, I did not want it in the same way. My then colleagues were enjoying that for themselves. Anyway, so I never really published anything because I wasn't, not yet though. We'll discuss what I will publish later. But anyway, about Trump. So I was coming off of this. I was still trying to figure out, okay, I'm not interested in all the very anti-white hate that was used and quite divisive during the Obama years, and that still has a leftover longer lingering effect even today. I did not want to participate in that fully, and I knew I did not want to. I felt promptings in that. But I still was not convinced that President Trump, pre-president, was the right candidate. However, I also was not into Hillary Clinton that much. People around me were, just as a way to not give any kind of attention, worthy attention to President Trump. After all, he was male, he was white, he was rich, and of course there was all kinds of things about his personality and actions swirling all over the place. And of course they made headlines and made a lot of legacy media outlets and networks quite rich. But in any case, he had won. People who were pro-Hillary were disappointed. I gotta say, I was disappointed too. On the other hand, I also was not fully invested in her either. So anyway, Trump comes along. All this entire time, my mother was pro-Trump. She's a particular type of conservative, and I will say, as some of the things that she would post on her Facebook or even say, even long before Trump won his first presidency, were kind of kooky or whatever. However, the thing about my mom is her discernment gift is so sharp about such things. She was right at every turn, every minuscule turn. If you're surgical about dissecting, excuse me, and scrutinizing everything that she had declared, you'll find she was right. Either years later, or you just have a realization maybe a day after she posted something or said something or shared something with you vocally or in person. But after Trump was elected the first time, a few months after that, I was like, well, I'll just tell my mom, the next time I saw her, I'm going to go ahead and give Trump a chance. And so there I was again, researching President Trump, and I found that a lot about him was really legitimate, absolutely legit. And quite frankly, Barack Obama was supposed to be our President Trump, and I feel like he failed. He lied to us, ended up stashing money here and there, making deals under the table that the American public did not know anything about. He was really unclear and lied about his own orientation, which is really none of our business, but he was parading around as if he was a purely heterosexual traditionalist married to a woman. I'm not even sure if she's a woman. But anyway, I was also disgusted that he was still not clear. The matter was still not settled that he was not born in the United States. To this day, nobody really knows, and I can get quite upset about that. I've dug enough to find that the long form birth certificate really that he keeps flashing around, or at least at that time was flashing around, was really not legitimate at all. So anyway, here's President Trump, and I'm like, okay, I'll give him a chance. And I find that he is very human, certainly not perfect. However, there has been a lot of lies swirling around about him. And this takes me back to what I consider to be all kinds of lawfare against him from the top. The fake news was after him, attacking. And I realized, this is a president that I can actually trust. So much so that at the time his second election came around, which it's still up in the air whether he won or not. I actually believe he won because of all the voter fraud and election fraud he brought our attention to, let alone the manipulation by satellite, perhaps, of the Dominion voter machines. On and on. I can go on and on about it. There I was in Washington at the Stop the Steal rally. And I was living no longer in South Dakota at the time. I had moved here to New York City. And by then I had evolved in being a supporter of President Trump. And I feel like I had to repent of my previous ways of not studying enough of what this man was trying to do. And clearly he was not alone in his pursuit to save America, as he says, which is a wonderful catchphrase, but also to really clean up our bureaucracy. I agree with what some of the people online have been saying. They've become our fourth branch of government, and they are not elected. To clean that up, there is a problem that affects Indian country, where I often go. It affects U.S. territorial, indigenous country where I am from. The average everyday American affects economies. And he's clearly not a dummy, having built a multi-billionaire business for himself. And also his countless stories of his generosity. He always gets attacked for being racist. But for one, when you walk into any one of his Trump towers or establishments, It's always a mix and a diversity of ethnicities in there. Even people that are living there, always a mix of diverse peoples living there. I know I live here in New York City, and I go to these places. I'm like, okay, I want to go see what they're talking about. I've really not seen anything that's damning or condemning of his love of diverse people. If you're doing the job, great. Hey, I can see why he hired you and keeps you. So I saw many things for myself. And I'm constantly researching, constantly looking at the latest thing, looking into this thing, that thing, that thing. And so I although I'm no longer a full-time professor, but I'm still an academic and I'm still a scholar, and I still look into things. And so you're probably wondering, before I go on, you're probably wondering, what in the world is are my political leanings? What does that have anything to do with little big wins? Well, I'll tell you, when I was a full-time professor on the reservation, I worked mostly on the reservation and off that particular reservation at the tribal college. I was doing little things that were causing big wins. I was helping with arts and culture flourishing and the language, reviving the language flourishing, and also to help people have jobs. And then I got into politics as little things I was doing to enact the support of people that may never go down as big things in history or written down in history. I will never have my lights in big neon lights out there. I will never have my name out on a big shiny, a brightly shining marquee anywhere. But they were big things to people that were local, where I was serving the community. Absolutely. My support of my pal who was advocating for more rights on the reservation and more protections and more towards constitutional reforms of their tribal constitution to develop more rights and develop more amendments. So it was progressive in that way and what they need. I did not lead that movement. I was there riding in the car around with her, being her support with her. I was the little support of something so big, so big. You have to remember that this particular reservation is ground zero for all kinds of things, particularly the 1973, at least within the last century, the 1973 Wounded Knee standoff, also named Wounded Knee 2. Here they were facing the same, it's 2025 or even a few years back. We're still we're in the 21st century, they're still dealing with the same lack of rights, not stopped by white government or American government, but stopped by their own people, their own natives. That's a truth, a very hard truth. A lot of outsiders who have kumbaya, imaginary thoughts about indigenous peoples that they cannot understand. Yes, Native people can kill off Native people. Those are just the facts. And they can stop. Native people can stop Native people, as we see. So if you give them protections, then they can protect themselves and enact and create laws that help them protect themselves from these attacks, from these kill-offs, and from these injuries of all kinds. Well, anyway, those were little things I did, little things, but they have turned into big wins. And I learned more about my Heavenly Father through that as well. That is probably the most big win as well. So moving forward, so there's President Trump, and I'm doing little things by researching over time, creating this evolution of understanding him better, and understanding where he's come from, very, very selfless, and also understanding his many, many allies, many we will never see in the public eye, who support him, and they support him too, and they inform him. And I love the way that he is interested in my Christian values and wants to protect that. He's interested in preserving women from getting killed in the boxing ring by men. So I feel valued there as well. I mean, the list is endless with, seemingly endless with my support for President Trump, and he has kept his promises. He did everything he said he would. But I found out that he was doing this, and my perspective changed of him because I was doing little things like studying, prayerfully studying as well, and looking out for clues constantly. So you're probably wondering now, it's like, okay, well, he's won the second time. He's going faster than a bullet than even his first time around. It's pretty imminent that the Gaza conflict will end, and that's just around the corner. And it's pretty imminent that the Russian-Ukraine war will also end. That's also just around the corner. It's also pretty imminent that inflation will also go down. I would also not be surprised if the IRS is just absolutely dismantled and abolished. Absolutely. I mean, I could go on and on. And you're probably wondering, okay, what good is that for me, just to learn and come on a little podcast that maybe nobody listens to, although I need it to express myself. It's really something that I need. But I started seeing online that a lot of us Trump supporters, a lot of us traditionalists, a lot of us conservatives, a lot of us common sensors were being bullied. I was even bullied by several of my friends once they found out that I had become a Trump supporter. I educated myself. I prayerfully educated myself. And of course, along with reading scriptures and a slew of other things. And I was being bullied. Silence and ignoring me had become a weaponization method. Many people, even at church, at schools I was teaching maybe at, and in public life or in the community, online for sure. And of course, these attacks, nothing new. I knew people have had opposing thoughts and had strong feelings about it, would, start talking about physical threats or death threats, stupid stuff like that. Nothing new. I faced the same thing when I still continued to advocate on the reservation for Native Americans to have rights, better rights. Thanks to my friend, who's a tribal member herself, by the way, born and raised on the res. She knows what's going on. She knows what's going on, so she can lay it down for all y'all. And just to thank her every day for what she does for the people, what she continues to do for the people there. So I got a lot of hate. Ain't no thing. You just get tougher skinned. So I was getting the same thing as well. People were unfriending me because I was a Trump supporter. Underhanded comments online, underhanded comments at church, in classes, because these haters just, they cannot control themselves. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to bother you, but if you come my way, okay, I'm going to come at you. And I do. So that's really easy to handle. But I knew that I was not the only Trump supporter, the only conservative. I was not the only traditionalist, not the only common sensor that actually was receiving these attacks. And so I just had that, listen to, again, the still small voice telling me to, hey, look online and see who is conservative by just some of their comments real quick and start sending them one by one, not as a group mail, but in that group, send them private messages of support and information. And it's been years since I started that. Back in 2019, I started doing that. It's been years that I've reconnected with these patriots, most of them who are Americans, most of them are Christians. Many of them also are overseas. And I know they felt supported, finally, because I felt getting swallowed up by ugliness and attacks probably everywhere they were going, where people knew that they were Trump supporters, that they were conservative, if they learned that they were pro-Christian, that they learned they were traditionalists, that they learned that they were common sensors, that they learned that they were themselves and took upon them their own right, absolute American right to believe what you want and say what you want here. And for some reason, everybody against us we acted all like we didn't deserve to have our own mind in that. And so I started email. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of them. And the outpouring of gratitude in what I have done feels really great, because the main thing is not that they thank me. The main thing is that they feel supported, that they are not alone, that they are armed with information to combat and counter misinformation used to attack them, that they feel that way as well. So that's one of the reasons why I started doing that, and it's been lovely. I feel that I've got a support side to me, and they've got a support side as well. The other reason was, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. A few years ago, our prophet had restated and reaffirmed to us that really the most important thing on this planet is to missionary work and, of course, the temples. And so I found that this way of researching and then sharing with my brothers and sisters, whether they are members of my church or not, understand that they have a freedom of religion. And I felt like I had a particular duty to do all I can, even study up, and then share with these patriots privately and in messages my transparency that, hey, I am actually motivated in doing what I can to protect our temples, the crowning jewel, our prophet says, of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But I message patriots who are not attending church at all. Many of them are Christians, some are not. Some are a totally different faith. Some of them are totally different faith and don't even continue to attend church. Some are members of my church, the same church I'm at, but they don't continue either. We just have a commonality in understanding that our rights are being chipped away from the money-eating left. And I say money-eating because clearly those in power that took our tax dollars had supported things that were very anti-Trump. They were anti-common sense. They were anti-conservative, anti-traditionalist. And there you have news outlets and news networks and news companies and so many organizations paid out in the name of these anti-conservative things. And so, of course, we felt like we were told we were lost zealots, we were crazy, we were outdated. And all in all, it really was this ploy, this grand international ploy to not give money mostly to conservatives or in any balanced way, half and half conservative stuff, half leftist stuff. No, it was mostly leftist agendas and leftist programs there, and that those layers further blurred the lines and further muddied the paths for those who wanted to stay true to who they felt they were, which was conservatives. And so we find a hero in President Trump, and I think people will find any way to attack us for our support. They're like, "Oh, you worship him. He's this grandiose." I'm like, no, I don't. I'm just not going to support any president just because the population say so. And I thought I did enough research for President Obama, how I have learned to be even more careful, even surgically careful, further surgically careful with how I research candidates and anyone that I actually support. So I learned my lesson from supporting President Obama, who I no longer support at all. He's got to complain about countless things. Well, anyway, so President Trump is now our current president. He's doing wonderful things. One of the things that also had me more endearing toward him was what he did for the U.S. territory in the Pacific that I'm actually from. During the Bush years, it was coming down, a bill was coming down that the minimum wage was going to be raised everywhere in the United States practically, including American Samoa. Well, it was enacted, and that meant trouble for us as American Samoa. We do not have an economy there for the wage hike. When Obama came into office, when that was supposed to be enacted, he did his best to slow it down, and then not much after that for us. Well, then Trump came in, and I did not know this until later. And Trump had said, okay, we're going to find another way. Him as an administration said, we'll find another way so that you guys could keep an economy better than kind of what was left or what was like handed out to you in the form of this wage hike, which we could not sustain. And he said, well, why don't we actually open up some maritime resources for you guys to fish more and bring that in. Just doing what he could to help us without having us go through Congress again to undo the wage hike in some was very unfair. And it was devastating. That wage hike was devastating. It took out an entire a cannery company, of which my father was an executive in, took that out. They left American Samoa and went elsewhere where they could afford to sustain themselves. Thousands and thousands of American Samoa, U.S. natives, indigenous, lost jobs practically overnight. My schoolmate, my childhood schoolmate, who was the executive over at the other canning company there at the time, was doing all he can to sustain that company that held on. But it has taken years for us to recover from that. It was devastation. It was really bad policy. It was a really bad law. And we did not get to have a say in that. It was horrible. I did not know that it was President Trump who's trying to help us. The other two dudes before him, yeah, forget about it. And so that also helped me feel a lot more secure in President Trump being our president. Well, anyway, fast forward to today. Those are all little things that I've done. A little research, little prayers, a little scripture reading, a little comparing of notes, a little more attentiveness. Well, not a little more attentive. I have a lot more attentiveness on a whole slew of topics in relation to politics, American politics and international politics because of that. But all those things started out with smaller forms of my choosing to be open to, okay, let's look here with regards to President Trump and his administration and his cabinet, et cetera, et cetera. And as a result of that, I am an absolute supporter of his. I'm so proud of him. And anyway, I wanted to share that, not to toot my own horn, but to convey several things that you just don't know anything unless you look under the hood. And I certainly made that small decision to open up that hood, the hood of that Corvette, and find what's inside. A little deeper and a little bit better than even previous I had done with politics as well. And as a result of that, I was also, in small ways, help other people who were drowning in being bullied, being harassed and attacked, and who were silenced And I'm grateful I took the little time to do that to help them as well. And also to complain to them about my feelings about protecting the temple. And so I wanted to share that with you. We can do so. My name, of course, I will never be popular or famous. And the only reward I get through that is a good feeling inside my heart of being informed. And it's just a wonderful feeling. It's a little like event in me, but I feel like those are big wins, and I feel like I was truly true to myself, regardless of what the mob around me would say or pressure me to do or be things or be of an opinion that really was not me at all. So I just wanted to share that, and I hope that you also find inspiration in being true to you. For me, it starts with little things, for those little big wins, and it could be for you as well. By the way, I'm also really excited about, I'm sifting through the Epstein files that were released today. You can find it on the FBI page. They posted all that. They laid it all down. And of course, people be wilding out and crying about, oh, this is not enough. I'm like, okay, learn to read, okay? Do those little things and learn to read. So it's been very interesting reading through that. And that's just phase one. And I'm excited about that as well. But there's already much to look into as to what has already been released today. And I'm just taking my time reading a little at a time. And okay, thanks so much. Thanks for joining Little Big Wins.